Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar today. I'm just going to wait a moment for everyone to join us. Now, our webinar today is about how to get the most out of your decodable reading books. And we're looking at Phonics Shed as well a bit today. I will first of all start off by looking at the importance of stories. Then we'll have a look at the Decodable Reading Scheme. Then we'll have a look at Comprehension and some of our Literacy Shed Plus resources, Vipers, and how these could help. And then we'll look at strategies with reading one-to-one with a pupil and reading in a group. And I'll show you the Teacher Hub on Phonics Shed right at the end. This webinar will be recorded and will be available on our EdShed YouTube channel. So first of all, why stories are so important. So people find stories interesting, easy to understand, and easy to remember, which is why we use these as a foundation for phonics and teaching children the sounds to read and write and their GPCs. Both storytelling and story reading have been found to be successful educational strategies that create significant improvements in language acquisition in young children and improve their oral and spoken language and develop reading comprehension. So it's building that vocabulary as well as learning their GPCs and putting these into a meaningful context. Schools who score highly in the phonics screening check have noted building a love of stories and reading plays a big part in their success. And a survey by the Literacy Trust found that children who enjoy reading were up to 3 times more likely to have higher than expected reading levels for their ages. Since the 1960s, research has repeatedly shown that reading for pleasure is an indicator of reading ability. And it's also shown that it's got a big impact on children's overall education than socioeconomic factors. So it has a huge impact, and it's all about building that vocabulary that they can then also use within their writing. Now, in Phonics Shed and our Decodable Reading Scheme, we've got 120 stage-specific decodable reading books that run alongside our scheme. And these are specifically identified by their Decodable Reading Scheme logos on the front cover, because we also have teaching books as well, used to introduce the GPC in our Phonics Shed scheme. So you can tell the decodable readers as they have a logo on the front. And these stories are 12 pages long with 5 pages of decodable text, followed by questions about the story page for adults. And from chapter 2 onwards, key vocabulary page, which you can see in the image here. And they are high frequency words. The ones in bold are common exception words, which they won't be able to sound out yet. And this is a really nice way to go through this to give the children confidence before starting to read the decodable reading books. In Phonics Shed, we use sound it, squash it, say it as a means of blending the word. So we sound the different GPCs in the word out, for example, cat, so k, at, and then we squash it. So we say it quite quickly, k, at, and then we are able to say the word cat. So practicing with decodable text will help to make sure that children experience success and effectively develop their phonics strategies. This is in line with the DFE reading framework and the Ofsted inspection handbook, which state that the sequence of reading books should show a cumulative progression in phonic knowledge that's matched closely to the school's phonic programme. So our decodable reading scheme closely follows our scheme, so that if you give a child a decodable book matched with that part in the scheme, they will not come across any words that are not decodable or have not been taught in the lesson, which are those high frequency words. Now here you can see how well matched up they are. So within Phonics Shed, we have GPCs split into different chapters, and then those chapters are further split into sets. So you can see here for set 2, the GPCs and the common exception words that are covered, and the high frequency words and the books that go alongside those. The 20 chapter 1 books are pre-readers. Within Phonics Shed, we have 4 chapters, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the pre-reading books can be understood without needing text. So talking about the pictures, what's happening, and what you think the story is. Just a really nice way for children to get to know what handling a book is like, having a go at turning the pages, and how we need to care for books as well. The chapter two books begin at the end of set 2, as there are very few decodable words, as we saw on the previous slide before then, and they include 2 Share With Me non-fiction stories within set 5. You can see the different stories listed on some of them here. So we've got chapter 2, set 3, lesson 5. After that is taught, these will then be decodable. Chapter 3 includes Anna's Bath, which focuses on A as in R, which is my regional variation. Being from the south, I say Bath and not Bath. So we also cover different regional variations of the different sounds as well. Chapter 4A includes, among others, decodable books which focus on split digraphs, and 4B contains 2 fully decodable non-fiction books, as well as all of the other decodable books within that scheme. You need to get to the end of chapter 4B to get ready for the phonics screening check. We also have planning for chapter 4C, which you will start at the end of year 1 and in year 2. And we don't have any decodable reading books with that part. Now, here's the simple view of reading, which is taken from the reading framework, which lots of you might have seen before. A good reader needs to have good language comprehension and good word reading, so the ability to decode words. Here is a nice way, which I have done in the past, being also a trained primary school teacher. I have grouped children in specific reading groups according to this. So I've almost put their names in here in the different sections as to what they find tricky or what they can do. So any children with poor word reading and poor language comprehension would go in here. Any children with good language comprehension but poor decoding could go in here. And good word reading, poor language comprehension here, and those that are good at word reading and language comprehension would go in this section here. So it's also quite a nice way, if you wanted to split your class into those different groups and look at the different weaknesses within your class and the areas that you want to focus on for particular children. Now, within Literacy Shed Plus, we have additional comprehension strategies should you have this subscription as well. This is actually free, so I've included the link down here. So Vipers split reading comprehension into specific skills. So vocabulary, inference, prediction, explanation, retrieve, and then we've got sequence or summarize. So it's a really nice way to focus on comprehension and a specific skill on a specific day. And you know then that you're covering everything. So it's just a method of ensuring teachers ask and students are familiar with a range of questions, and that you do these targeting questions as you are reading a specific decodable text. They allow the teacher to track the type of questions asked and the children's responses to these, which allows for targeted questioning afterwards. Here are the different questions that go with these different specific skills. They're all free, so you can have a look and download those. I think these are a really good thing to maybe have sort of A5 laminated in front of you when you are doing either reading with a specific child or a group. Here you can see that you can do some targeted vocabulary questions depending on the words that you come across. What does the word mean in this sentence? And can you think of any other words the author could have used to describe this? Inference, talking about characters' feelings, maybe why what has happened might have made him feel that way or her, the character in the story. Looking at predictions, maybe this is something really nice to do before you read the books, having a good look at the front and back cover, maybe flicking through the story. What do you think the story is going to be about? And what do you think is going to happen next? And then we've got explain. So asking the children questions such as, who is your favourite character and why? Why do you think all the main characters are girls in this book, if they are? Would you like to live in this setting? And those sorts of different turns taking of asking questions and getting children to respond are also really crucial, and teaching them other skills whilst reading the book too. And then retrieving specific information from texts. So what kind of text is this? Maybe you might say, where are they in the story? Where did this happen? Anything that you can retrieve from the key features of the text. And then finally, sequencing. So maybe after reading the book, you might want them to get them to tell you a story back if it's a quite a straightforward, short, decodable book. Can you sequence the events? What happened after? What happened before? What happened in the opening, middle, and end? So I just think these are really good questions that you can just have to hand or hand over to any member of staff that's doing reading with one-to-one or a group. Then we've got our Phonics Shed books, and I've just very briefly done how to read a Phonics Shed book. So first of all, I'd advise to just look at the front cover and any pictures and discuss what the story might be about using that prediction and some of those prediction questions. Then looking at the author and illustrator, having a look at what their jobs are. Can you point to the author in this story and the illustrator, and reading the high frequency and common exception words on the front page as we've got in our key vocabulary. Try and make this fun. See if you can do them in silly voices, high-pitched, low-pitched voices, loud and quiet, and read through those, but trying to keep the children engaged as well. Then reading the story, the pupil should read out loud using our sound it, squash it, say it for blending words. Depending on the child, you might want to read a couple of words first and model how to use sound it, squash it, say it, so they can see what success looks like. And then can they relate any of their past experiences to parts of the story, and use some of those questioning cards that we looked at before. So maybe explaining, inference, why does this character feel like that? Where is the story set? Would you like to live there? Maybe picking out some of the Phonics Shed characters if you use our scheme, seeing if they've seen them before and can they remember their names. And then at the end of the book, there will be a comprehension questions to discuss together, which you can see here. See if they can find the part in the book which answers the question, depending on the question type. Here I've just got other ideas. We talked about turn taking, so asking the question, having eye contact with the pupil, because particularly when we're looking at our Key Stage 1 children who are still very young, and in the lessons, really making sure that they do eye contact when they're talking to you, which is such an important skill to learn. You might want to read some words together very slowly so they don't feel like they're reading it on their own. Maybe after finishing the book, you might want to go through and see if you can spot certain GPCs that you've been learning that week. Teaching pupils how to look after books and naming parts of the book, such as the spine and the front cover, depending whether it has a contents page and the back cover. You might want to get them to read to Joe the puppet or a special cuddly toy if they're feeling a little bit worried or have low confidence. I've also come across and worked in schools that have reading to dog schemes and things like that, which are really nice to build the confidence of those pupils who don't really enjoy reading out loud. Or reading in a really special place in the school and making our reading areas really welcoming and comfortable. So online, we have our decodable books can be assigned to pupils. So you can have them as hard copies, but you can also assign them to pupils online. So when they log in, they can read the book in school or at home, and they can do this as many times. You'll be able to see, I have on my test pupil here, Scary Spice. You can see when you've assigned the ebooks, you can see whether they have completed that book or not and got to the end. We've also got information for parents. I've just put a little clip of our parent leaflet here, so you can encourage parent participation when reading the books and explaining things like the key vocabulary page to them. It also, on the leaflet, explains just in basic terms what phonics is for those that don't know, and particularly for those reception children. Some of the parents might not have come across phonics, and I think for some it can feel quite daunting and a bit of an alien concept, as they might not have been taught in this way before. We also have This Week We Are Learning cards, which you can see there, which go with our planning, and they can be sent home or put on newsletters or on class blogs, however you want to do that, so that parents can see the different characters and the GPCs as well. Now, we also use these books as a way of making meaningful connections with the children. So the character-based stories cover lots of important and relatable themes, such as emotions, social skills, mental health, and self-care, which allow children to identify with the characters and engage at a bit of a deeper level. They can also help children address their own thoughts and feelings by talking about the stories and some of the issues raised within them. And it's also a really nice way for them to see some of the Phonics Shed characters in a meaningful context and just keep that constant recap and recall of all of those GPCs which relate to our characters. Here are some ideas of reading in a group. I've already said before that you could have the Vipers cards in front of you to give ideas of questions to ask. And here are just some ideas of ways you might do that. So first of all, you might have a small reading group of children at a similar level, a similar reading level with a similar decodable book, and recap the flashcards with a focused GPC, which is in the book, and the high frequency words and common exception words on the front first page, just to get them warmed up and use a bit of recapping their previous knowledge. Then looking at the cover of the books and pictures and prediction what's going to happen. Can you see any characters from the Phonics Shed Garden that you already know? Then you, as the adult, might model using Sound It, Squash It, Say It to just read the first page of the book. The children could then also read that first page afterwards, but it's just a nice way for them to remember how to use the method of blending words. Then the reading section might take different forms depending on the children in your group, whether they're confident readers or not, and how much of the GPCs they are really comfortable with. So I would just recommend all children's fingers to follow the text, so you know that they're actively engaged and in the right place. You could all read together very slowly, each word. You could do turn taking, so go around the group, or you could send them off in pairs, but to have them quite close to you, and they can read a page to each other. Depending on the story, you may discuss expression in the speech bubbles and have a look at some of the language and the punctuation used, talking about things like if there's an exclamation mark or a question mark, how that might change how we read the words. Some ideas on what to observe could include their decoding, their fluency, expression, ability to follow text, confidence, and pronunciation. I always find it's really good to have some sort of performer to just jot down any observations that you note. Then you could discuss comprehensions as a group, which are at the end of the book, to gauge the understanding of text and see if they can retell the story. Now, if you don't have enough copies of all of our decodable books, what I have done in the past is assigned the book to the group. So they all have an iPad, book the iPad trolley or however you have it in your school. They log in and they can follow it on the iPad. So they've all still got a copy of that book and can flick to and from the pages as well. They can go back as well as forward. And then at the end, having a look at the sequencing and summarizing of the story, seeing if they can retell the story to the partner or the group, in fact. Now what I'll show you is the Teacher Hub, and I'll show you the resources, assignments, and games. And if you've got any questions, if you could pop those on the Q&A button at the bottom, and we'll go about answering those for you. What I'm going to quickly do is share my other screen. So this is what the Teacher Hub looks like within EdShed. If you've got any different subscriptions, it will always look the same. Our Phonics Shed resources can be found here and in Phonics Shed. And you can see there the different chapters, the guidance and training folder, our parent and carer resources, and then intervention planning, which is also within the chapters as well. Now with Phonics Shed, for every GPC, we have 3 lesson plans. We have the daily lesson plan. We also have a consolidation lesson plan. So if a large majority of the children need to go back and do another lesson on a GPC, you're not repeating the same lesson again. And then our 3rd lesson plan is an intervention lesson plan. So for a small group of children or one-to-one who need to go back and revisit, and they're short 10-minute sessions which require minimal resources. So they're ideal to hand over if you've got another member of staff doing the interventions. I'm just going to click into a chapter and just show you some of the things that we have. If I click into set 1, here we've got teaching books, songs, the interventions I was talking about, the decodable reading books. We've also got guidance videos on how to pronounce each GPC and the action that goes with it, which can be really beneficial for staff to watch. And we have letter formation animations too. What I'll do is quickly show you what one of the daily planning forms will look like. So if I download that. So here we've got chapter 3, set 1, and you can see it's covering those GPCs there. And we've got overviews of each lesson at the top and the structure of each lesson. Also says about which resources you will need. If I carry on going down, we have some other features included as well, such as continuous and enhanced provision suggestions for the early years environment that go alongside the book. And then we have a detailed lesson plan. So here we've got lesson 1, which is the focus is Wing the Duckling. So here you can see the resources. So recap, we're showing the flashcards of previous sounds and high frequency words taught. Then they all have the same structure. So then we introduce our new sound for today, which you would have previously had in your flashcards and kept repeating it so that children start to get the idea. And then you can introduce them alongside the character. So for example, here we've got Wing the Duckling, which is NG. So ng. So you'd say, show the flashcard, this is Wing the Duckling, say hi to Wing. Do you recognise the 2 letters that make up Wing's sound? And the characters Noah the nurse and Gray the goat that make that up. And then we're demonstrating the sound ng. And then we're talking about diagraphs. So what we're doing is running Joe or your finger over the letters and repeating the sound. Then we introduce the name. So the 2 letters that make up Wing sound are N and G. Can you say N and G? So the whole time keeping active engagement with the pupils. Then we've got action. So for Wing, it's like this, like a wing. So show the children the action and repeat the action and the sound all together. Then we go on to looking at when NG is found in a word. So it's never at the beginning of a word, it's always or mostly at the end, or sometimes in the middle. Then the whole group section is the multisensory scheme. So we've got different ways to introduce the sound. So now we know what the sound is. We've got the corresponding song. We've got the letter formation rhyme. And we've also got Wing the Duckling story. Now this is a teaching book, so the children don't need to be able to read this. We have digital versions and hard copies, so you can put them on the interactive whiteboard if you'd like. And the story introduces Wing the Duckling as the character in the Phonics Shed. Then our independent activities always have 3 levels to them: simplify, expect, and extend. And then we have a suggestion of plenary assessment questions. So I will just very quickly show you what a teaching book looks like. So we're talking a lot about reading today. So here's Wing the Duckling, the one that goes with that lesson plan. Now, these are slightly different because the key vocabulary is at the end of the book, along with the comprehension questions. So here we are with Buck the Duck, who's another character from the Phonics Shed, and it's introducing Wing, and it's just a little story about Wing the Duckling. Here we've got other characters from the Phonics Shed popping up here. So we've got Noah the nurse, Curly the cat, and Indy the imp. I'll just quickly skip through so you can see the end page. Then you've got some questions you can quickly chat about the story and some key vocab. So that's what that looks like. Now we also have our flashcards as hard copies, but for those who just want to stick with the digital version, we have them as a digital version as well, which is a really lovely tool. You can select a specific range from a specific chapter set to another one, or you've also got the option of specifically choosing some, whether that's uppercase, lowercase, specific ones if it's for an intervention. And then you can click start. You can also reshuffle them if you want it in a order. And then you've got the GPC on the front, and on the back you've got the character, Indy the imp, and the formation as well. So you might even want them to do it with their finger, but they're just for a quick recall usually. You can go next card. If they haven't got it quite right, you can get it to be reshuffled and click see again. And we have the same with high frequency words as this as well, although they don't have anything on the back of them. We also have assessment sessions. So if you go to the group page, pupils can be in as many different groups as you want. They can be in class groups, or they can be in spelling groups, phonics groups, whichever is easiest. It's a nice way to be able to group the pupils. And then you can go to phonics data and you can click launch assessment session. You can do one of these assessment sessions on a particular word list. You can do it on a set of high frequency words. You can also do it on a screening check simulator as practice for the phonics screening check. But if I just show you graphemes for now, if we go to a specific chapter, you can just do a particular set if you want, so it's more manageable rather than the whole chapter. And then click the pupil who is next to you, and then click start. So all you need is your pupil who's sitting next to you to be able to say this, GPC, so to be able to say the sound that goes with it. So the ng, and click whether they've got right or wrong, whether they're nearly there, and then this will start to populate the grid, which you can see there. That's one. Oh, that's one we did there. If for anything changes and they've suddenly got it, you can click back and alter that too. You can print these off in reports for a specific pupil or for a whole group. So there are lots of different ways that you can use this data. Final thing I'm going to show you today is the game screen. Now, this is what the game screen will look like for a child. I haven't got any work allocated to me at the moment because I'm still logged into my teacher account. You can set them to just have access to the work that you have given them. They don't need to have access to the whole of the Phonics Shed garden like this if you don't feel that is appropriate. So, for instance, we have different games here. If I click, we'll be able to hear the sound. We have sound games which have got first sounds, last sounds, and sounding out. So I'll show you one of those.
Attempt.
So you can see here it's got the you can still click on them. It's got the digraph there and it will sound it out.
Attempt. Attic.
So you can do that for beginning sounds of words with your sound in, middle sounds, or end sounds. We've also got other games such as matching graphemes to sounds. And you have to just match them together. We have the same there for high frequency words as well in the vocabulary games just below. Down here. And then the final, down there, sorry. Then the final one I'll show you is just the indie pop one. And they have to pop all the graphemes with that phoneme. So there are lots to explore on Phonics Shed. You can also have a look and have access. I've got access again to all the books here because I don't have any work set for me, but you can easily just make sure they've got the book that is right for them. And here I can open one of the books and read it. So this is what it looks like digitally for a pupil. Thanks so much for watching today. If you've got any further questions, please email support@edshed.com. Thanks so much.